This is TWiT.
New book. I haven't read it yet. I want to read it. Apparently, he was on Colbert last night. The author, Patrick McGee. Apple in China, the capture of the world's greatest company. The premise of this... Oh, you got it. You've read it. Nice.
Well, no, it literally arrived today at the library. And
it's a library book.
It was my hold, yeah. I've only read the forward.
This is the summary from Simon & Schuster. After struggling to build its products on 3 continents, Apple was lured by China's seemingly inexhaustible supply of cheap labor. Soon it was sending thousands of engineers across the Pacific, training millions of workers, spending hundreds of billions of dollars to create the world's most sophisticated supply chain. These capabilities enabled Apple to build the 21st century's most iconic products in staggering volume and for enormous profit, but without explicitly intending to, Apple built an advanced electronics industry within China, only to discover that its massive investments in technology upgrades had inadvertently given Beijing a power that could be weaponized. The author, McGee, says China could just stop the iPhone cold anytime it wanted.
Yeah, I've only read the foreword, but the foreword begins with like when Xi Jinping rose to power, and immediately Chinese state-sponsored television was like launching attacks against Apple about, oh, you're not treating your Chinese customers as well as you're treating international customers, and you're just all this, that, and the other, and how like Apple was like shocked that but we spent all this money making this great relationship, and our policies are pretty much the same like everywhere. And it was like a moment where they realized that they maybe don't have the relationship with China that they thought they did. And that the author identifies that as like a turning point where that's the point at which instead of going 100% diplomacy and putting executives living in China full time to keep an eye on like what the weather was over there, that's when they should have started to think about what if this relationship breaks down. They were putting in one of the figures that's being quoted a lot in the reviews is about how the CHIPS Act, like the Biden's CHIPS Act, was something like $52 billion total, whereas Apple was putting like $55 billion a year into Chinese manufacturing. And it wasn't just like investing in factors. It was like creating workflows, creating infrastructure, creating this, that, and the other. Basically, as I think that quote that you said didn't put it, a transfer of knowledge, a transfer of experience going into China. And if you're concerned about geopolitics in that kind of manufacturing, the argument to be made is that Apple seriously undermined the United States' ability to ever be able to build iPhones profitably inside the United States by putting all that money and all that expertise into building up a Chinese electronics industry. It
sounds like this was well-researched, more than 200 interviews. Apple, according to 9 to 5 Mac, says the claims made in this book are false and there are many inaccuracies throughout. The company asserts the author didn't perform proper fact-checking. So Apple doesn't like it.
And there's a pretty good good interview on The Daily Show as well.
That's what it was, The Daily Show. Yeah.
It was kind of hilarious. Yeah. John was particularly animated in this. This is probably not one he could have done on his show on Apple TV.
No kidding.
Yeah, so, I mean, it definitely outlined, how you go down a path and, something I always call it the kitty cat principle, which is that your cat is so nice to you as long as you're much bigger than it is, and as soon as it's bigger than you, you're lunch, it would switch to lunch really fast, even your own cat. I think that the challenge that Apple had is when they got there wasn't a lot there. They splunked it. The problem is, I think anybody saying that this could be done in the United States isn't really looking at what people are willing to pay. I mean, we're talking about people not willing to pay for a headset for $3,500. That's probably about what the top of the line Apple phone would cost if we did it in the United States. And that's just labor. Like just the cost of labor is just entirely different. And it was much different back then. It's gotten the cost of labor has gone up in China pretty dramatically, partially because of Apple. But the automation has also changed. And so and again, I think that trying to compare that to the overall decline of machining and precision machining in the United States long before any of this stuff happened. I think that he probably jumps to a couple of conclusions I wouldn't follow, but it is the case that Apple trained a lot of people to do a lot of things, and it has built a lot. When you look at a company like DJI, who is exploding, there's a lot of technicians that are working on DJI that probably came out of those at some point were in those Apple factories getting trained to do precision work.
Well, I guess I will read it.
I got the Audible book. I bought it. I saw the interview with Jon Stewart and ordered literally while I was watching it going, I need to listen to this
Good.
book.
Well, next week.
By next week,
book
I will.
club.
Yeah.
Book club. Tell us what you think. I mean, on the surface, it makes a lot of sense. And I don't think there's anybody could deny that if somehow in this trade war, China decided it would be more in their interest to slow down production of the iPhone, that they could do it. He says, you could cut power to 4 hours a day. Or
so the counter argument is that we, especially in America, tend to build up China as this big, scary boogeyman.
Right.
And while China is huge and has a huge economy and has a lot of money, the fact is that it is a two-way relationship. The fact is China benefits greatly and China's economy benefits greatly from all the business.
It would have to be a crisis in our relationship.
It would have to be a severing of ties, basically, for this to happen, because it would be. And again, I know it's an authoritarian regime and they've got complete control and all of that, but like
they're also in economic straits.
The weakness is always going to be the economy, because people will put up with a lot, but there is a limit to it. And so that's the thing, is like, yes, Apple would be completely boned if China was like, nope, no more exporting anything to outside of China. It's over. But China's economy would be pretty boned too.
Right.
And
it would be mutual. It's mutually assured destruction.
Yeah,
which is always a good way.
At which point we're really just talking about a war over Taiwan is the scenario here.
Right.
Well, there are a lot of components to this, and part of it is like having watched. If anybody who's been watching for the past 3 or 4 years has seen that China has decided that why are we direct helping our own people to put money into a company like Apple and making that almost the national luxury brand? Why don't we make Xiaomi the national luxury brand instead, and eventually wean ourselves of the influence of this kind of foreign money? And this is one of the reasons why I think you see sales in China declining.
Yeah.
There was another story about how some retailers were offering unprecedented discounts on iPhones, above and beyond just like a regional or a holiday sale, because just sales are just down, and it doesn't seem to be a way to get them back up again. And part of that has to be because the Chinese Communist Party has all kinds of outlets in which to promote Chinese businesses and to at least disadvantage Apple businesses. I don't think they're at a point right now where they will do what they did in 2013, which is to basically, like, within it really was it's a nice opening of the book. Literally within 72 hours of taking power, he was like firing fusillades against Apple. I don't think we're back to that, but they don't have to really attack Apple directly so long as they give local companies, Chinese companies, advantages that are denied to Apple.
Well, Apple says that they're still selling pretty well in urban China. It's not all of China, but in urban China that they sell very well. Their business is not growing like it did a while ago. I think that I think that from a China standpoint, they keep vacillating between the nationalism of, be proud and buy Chinese products, and the other part of it, which is, look how awesome we are. You get access to the very best product in the world. It isn't denied to you, and they customize it for China, and isn't that great? And so there's a real kind of like back and forth that happens there. But that's the consumer part of the business, and I think nobody would argue that if Apple's sales in China went to zero, Apple would be in dire straits, right? They wouldn't be happy. They'd be very sad about it. But like, that's the consumer sales aspect, whereas there's the manufacturing aspect where they would be completely wrecked if that went. And China benefits from that because those are factories that are employing lots of people in the supply chain and, assembling Apple devices and all of that. And that is, if you lost that would be bad for China's economy. So it's complicated, but like, there's no doubt about the thesis of this book, which is that Tim Cook didn't have to put go all in on China. But Tim Cook in the 2000s was a real believer in China as a market and China as a manufacturing center, and went all in. He did. He went all in. There's no denying that. And now he is dealing with all the weakness that causes him and the lack of flexibility that it causes him.
Well, and I think that the hard part is that a lot of these things kind of generate their own weather system. Like all the hard drives are made in Thailand or whatever. There was a time, at least, when all the hard drives made, and when we had a flood, we couldn't buy hard drives.
That's right.
Because everyone, because the problem is that you have these huge, massive supply chains that are, it's like you have to have all these other pieces that are there to supply it. All the little pieces, all the little things that are made, it's all made by a bunch of little companies. It's not just that there's one big company that's building all these things. There's all these suppliers that are providing all of these things that are all kind of flowing into that system. And so as you build that up, it gets to a point where it's pretty hard to do anywhere else, And so now Apple is doing it, and it's very expensive. And I think that China's sensitive to that. I think the problem is that all the saber rattling that's happening between the United States and China gives Apple a little bit of cover. Like, hey, we got to be able to do something else, and we got to be able to, we've got tariffs and everything else. So building up into India makes sense. But I think what they're doing in India is exactly the same thing as what they did in China. In Vietnam, they're training lots of people. It's not just that India is, and this is why India has such large tariffs they want you to build things there because they want skills. Like they want the skills that are part of this puzzle. They want to build those skills up. Whether in Vietnam wants the same thing. Everybody. So Apple going in and hiring tens of thousands of people to do these things, is going to build up an industry again in other countries. They need time, and the question is whether they'll have enough time to make the turn before there's a conflict over Taiwan. I think that really the big thing is we can talk about all the other things that Apple might be caught up in, but the war in Taiwan is the thing that would probably be the thing that will turn the crank the hardest between the two if something happens there.